she is one of the Rest Friends. She is also going to be part of the new AEW Collision post show here on Fightful.com. Every Saturday night, it'll be herself. We're going to introduce her in a second. Cresta Star and Rick Ucchino. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Iridian Fierro. How you doing, Iridian?
Hey, I'm doing so well. How are you guys?
Doing great. It's good to see you.
Doing well. Good to chat with you, Iridian.
I am so excited to talk to you guys. You can even before I got on, I was like, oh my God, I'm getting a little nervous. I don't know why.
Don't be nervous. This show is the dumbest show we do on any of these channels. So you'll be fine. There's nothing to be nervous about for this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you've already got the room set up that like beats everyone else's, so you don't have to worry about anyone's stuff.
And giving you guys your props, like you guys are amazing. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Stop it. Flattery will get you everywhere. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this post show. It's going to be a 3-person post show. I know Sean's going to show up once in a while and give his takes when I'm sure he'll show up on Saturday this week to talk about literally everything. But talk to me about how you got here. We're excited. It's going to be that 3-person booth and you're going to be a part of it. So how did you get to this point?
Yeah, you know what? It's a little bit crazy because it was like about, I think Sean tweeted that he was looking for people to kind of be hosts of the post show. And I'm like, you know what? Let me throw my name in there, So I, liked the tweet and I added a little comment. I said something like, hey, I'm interested. And I had been on the Day After Dynamite show with Will Washington. And I think the show went pretty well. Will was pretty cool. And he also thought that I did really well. So weeks passed. I had no idea that I was even in the running or being considered to be part of the show. So I was in the process of finishing up my second year of my master's program. And I'm like, oh my God, I have finals. And I suddenly get this message from Will. And he's like, hey, just FYI, I threw your name in there with Sean for the post show. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you so much. Like, yeah, let me send Sean a DM because I was interested really quick. And Sean was like, hey, so funny story, you were actually on the short list for a couple of people that I had in mind. And I'm like, oh, okay, wonderful. And the day before my last class, Sean was like, hey, double check in. Are you still interested? Like, do you want to, host? And I'm like, absolutely. Yes, of course. I love AEW. So I think I could talk enough about wrestling, that I can go on the show and be a host afterwards. And the next morning, I started receiving DMs of congratulations. I had no idea why. I didn't know what was happening. I'm like, congratulations for what? What did you guys like? I guess graduation, right? Like I figured, like, sure, why not? And it's actually Robert DeFelice, who's also on Fightful. He's like, yeah, Sean tweeted it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Sean tweeted it. Sean tweeted what? I had no idea. I was still in the weeds. I had no idea what was happening. And I go on Twitter and sure enough, Sean had announced it. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't get the notification because I had my Twitter notifications off. Sometimes Twitter gets a little crazy. So I'm like, I need a pause from this. And that made me miss the notification. So I was like really shook. I had no idea what was happening. And it was just crazy. But I'm very, very excited. I spoke to Will afterwards and I'm like, hey, thanks so much for even mentioning me. You didn't have to do that. He didn't have to go out of his way to say anything like that or any of that sort. So I am really excited now to be able to be a part of this post show. And I actually chatted with Cresta and Rick last week and we had a great time. So I can only imagine what the show is going to be like.
Knowing the three of you, it's going to be very fun. And it's going to be very it's in the best way, very weird because the three of you approach wrestling very differently. I do the Impact post show with Cresta and we take nothing seriously, but we also speak about the show seriously. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how the three of you mesh and interact and get through this Collision show.
It's definitely going to be interesting because I could tell as soon as I joined the chat that we were all so very different, but we loved wrestling just the same. So I knew that I'm like, we're going to be fine. It's going to be okay.
I was going to ask if you did, have a chance to chat with Cresta and Rick and kind of game plan of I assume Rick might be like leading the recap portion of things, and then he throws it to you guys for color commentary. I'll say, so did you kind of come up with a little kind of base game plan for the first episode, and then as everything is in wrestling, it changes, you adapt, you figure out what kind of works, and you go from there.
Yeah, we did, and Rick said exactly that. He's like, "Yeah, I'll kind of set you guys up, and then you guys will take over." And I'm like, "But you're also a huge part of the show. We're all 1/3 here." So the fact that he said that he's going to constantly put me and Cresta over. So that's kind of, I guess, what the show will be. But I think the energy that we all have is literally insane because, Cresta, she brought out her little mustache, put it on, and I was like, "We're here. We are here, and we're going to talk about wrestling."
She does that almost every week. Last night she busted out the no, I don't want to say normal Cresta, but like the everyday Cresta, and like everyone was like, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful!" And like she was all done up. She's like, "Yeah, I'm going to see my mom after the show."
I was watching last night, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is a new look. I hadn't seen this yet." So I don't know. I might have to bring out a few looks too. Who knows?
That's what wrestling is, though. Like that's where we're at. Speaking of it, like, how did you get into wrestling? Like, what was your path? Like, what brought you in?
Oh my God. I have loved wrestling since I was a little kid. I think I was like about 7 or 8 years old, probably. And I don't remember the specific match that I was watching, but there was chairs involved and it was WWE. And I'm like, oh my God, people are fighting and there's weapons. This is literally insane, but I couldn't stop watching it. And I'm like, okay, I figured out that this was like weekly programming, really cool. So from then on, I was really obsessed with it. I don't know what it was, but I would watch with my dad. My dad's also a huge wrestling fan. So it's something that we got to bond over together. And I tried to stop watching wrestling when I got to college because I'm like, all right, this is enough. This has been plenty years. This is not cool anymore. People who watches wrestling anymore, and I couldn't get away from it. WWE was having a house show in like a gym in Indiana, and I'm from Chicago, so I was like, Indiana's not that far. Like, let's go see. I had never been to a wrestling show before. And I think like Seth Rollins was on the card, and they had so many great people. And I'm like, I don't believe why I stopped watching this. So I have to continue to to start watching. And I think one of the first WrestleManias that I saw coming back was when Seth actually cashed in. And that was insane. I'm like, there is so much love that I have for wrestling that I was just so excited. And yeah, I've been watching for plus 10 years, 12 years, 20 years probably. I'm 27 now. So if I was 7 when I started, 20 years definitely. But I absolutely love wrestling. And I think the obsession continues to grow every year. I can't help it. I just purchased my first AEW action figure, which I didn't know I was going to start owning action figures, but I guess this is me now.
Okay, what figure did you get?
I got the Yuta. I had to pre-order him. And he's like all bloody, which I was not a fan of blood. Still am a little wary when it happens, but I'm like, oh my God, it's just so cool. I have to get it.
You mentioned you're an AEW fan. What is it that you like about AEW? And kind of to piggyback in 2-part off of this, what are you expecting from Collision? Because it is a pretty big dynamic shift in AEW, adding this second show and the reasons they're adding this second show.
I think AEW as a company has really made me a bigger wrestling fan. Like I said before, all my wrestling knowledge was pretty much WWE. So when AEW came along, that's when I started, looking at the indies, looking at New Japan, looking at Impact, because I'm like, oh, wow, these wrestlers have been in so many other places. And when AEW came along, I was just obsessed. I'm like, oh my God, the Young Bucks. I remember the first time I saw the Young Bucks, I'm like, how crazy would it be if they went against the Hardys, not knowing this complete history that, they've had in the past. And I have just been so captivated by what they've been doing in AEW. It's introduced me to so many new talents. One of my favorite wrestlers of all time now, Britt Baker. I think she is phenomenal, fantastic. And I am just super excited because now Collision, I can't get enough of Dynamite, can't get enough of Rampage. Every pay-per-view that they have, I'm watching it. So Collision is just crazy. CM Punk's returning, and that is the talk of the town. I'll tell you, Chicago, I can feel it when I'm walking down the street. People are super excited about CM Punk. So I can only imagine what that's going to look like. But I'm very excited for different talent to show up. Thunder Rosa is going to be back. We're going to see Samoa Joe performing more. So I think all of these talents that we've really been missing on TV, this is their time to shine. And we're going to get 2 hours of it every single week.
Okay. Now, this is the most important question. Debut episode of Collision is coming up. You cannot say CM Punk. What are you most looking forward to?
Oh, man, probably it's going to be the first match. And I don't know what it's going to be, but that match is going to set the tone. And we're really going to see what happens out of the gate from that. I'm really hoping Tony comes out, because Tony's been last time for a couple shows, he has not come out. And I'm like, come on, Tony, Chicago loves you. Come out. And, we're going to have a great time. We're going to cheer. Well, I'm going to cheer. And yeah, I think Tony coming out, really setting the mood. And then the first match, and we'll be ready to go. I'm excited.
All right. I've got one last question for you. You have done some work and had some conversations with our friends over at Wrestling Winedown.
Yeah.
Put them over, because I know you were in Vegas for Double or Nothing, and you did a quick little stint with that. You did a quick little conversation there. Talk to us about Wrestling Winedown. Talk about them, because I think they're a slept on podcast personally. Yeah.
So Lo is my best friend. I absolutely love her, and we met through her wrestling podcast, Wrestling Winedown. This was about probably 2-3 years ago, and she had me on, and I'm like, oh my god, a woman who's talking about wrestling and wine. Who doesn't love wine, right? We all love a little alcohol mix every now and then. So we just vibed really, really well, and we are now best friends. We've been talking every single day since. She's come and stayed at my house for pay-per-views. I've gone to her house recently, and for Double or Nothing, it was amazing. I think she does really, really great work. I absolutely love her. And yeah, Wrestling Winedown is doing some really, really great stuff. And you do have to definitely check her out. We have Chardonnay and Chisme, which we have a little beverage and a little wrestling talk. So I think that's something that a lot of people will be interested in. Also, because she is she's a woman, and there's not a lot of women talking about wrestling. We see it here once we're in the community, but really when you look at it, it's a real male dominated industry. So I'm like, the more women that we can get talking about wrestling and sharing their fandom, I'm here for it.
Iridian, I know we have a limited amount of time with you, so any closing comments on the new role at Fightful Collision? Just a preview of Collision, final comments on Collision, and then of course let everybody know where they can find you at.
Well, I'm so excited to start this journey with Fightful. I am still in shock that I was even considered. So now, to have Sean tweet out the official little poster for the show, I am really, really, really excited. And I can't say that enough. You guys are probably like, she's that excited. I don't know how many times on the show today, but I really am. I really am. And I am just really feeling blessed for the opportunity to even talk about wrestling. And I think it's just going to be a really, really great time. I'm really looking forward to Collision, because I think that it's going to be something new, and we could never really get enough of wrestling, right? I feel like there can never be enough. So I am ready to start, and I'm ready for everyone on Fightful to join us on Saturday nights after AEW Collision, because I just know it's going to be chaotic. Crazy, chaotic, exciting stuff. Yeah. And thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate it. And you guys can always find me on Rest Friends. We have a vlog, which I run the YouTube channel. We do unboxings. I do interviews. I literally try to do it all. And also on our podcast at Rest Friends. And you can also find me at Wrestling Winedown. We do Chardonnay and Chisme. So check that out.
Iridian, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck to you and to Cresta and Rick on the post Collision show. Again, Saturdays after Collision on youtube.com/Fightful. Go check them out. Because if you don't, then what are we doing here? This is going to be a great time.
Don't be afraid to yell at people in the chat. Tomorrow, they're going to be insane tomorrow. Don't be afraid to yell at them. I try to fight the people in the chat all the time. Sometimes you got to.
I'm a little scared about that, and Rick was like, you know what? I don't know about the chat. And I was like, if you don't know about the chat, I definitely don't know about the chat. So
one thing that I will say with Fightful is that we've done a really good job over the years of monitoring and moderating our chats. The people in these chats are almost always respectful, good folks. Sometimes dickheads get in, but like, I don't think you'll have to worry so much, but fight them when they're wrong.
Okay. And I will say, Joel and Jeremy told me I could.
And Sean will be like, that's fine.
That checks out. Yeah. That checks out. That Jeremy and Joel would say that. So, yeah.
Exactly. Iridian, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to
so much. I appreciate it.
We're looking
Thank
forward
you,
to
Iridian.
Saturdays with you. Take care. Enjoy it.